Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast presented by Saint Church. My name's Caleb, and our hope is to help you study the Word of God every single day. Every day, we're taking time to upload episodes onto Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, where we are reading through a chapter of the Bible. We are looking at the context it was written in, and we see what it has to say for us today. Today, we're going to be doing just that by continuing on in our study through the book of Numbers. We're going to be reading out of Numbers chapter 12. Now, really quick, before we dive on into that, if you end up enjoying this episode, if you find it beneficial, I just want to invite you to take a moment to subscribe, follow, leave a like, leave a rating. All of those things really do help make sure you find all this content whenever you're looking for it, and helps make sure that other people can find it and know it's trustworthy and worth checking out. But with that being said, let's just dive right on in to Numbers chapter 12, starting in verse 1. Let's see what the Word of God has to say today. It says this: Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses, they asked? Hasn't he also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. At once the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "Come out to the tent of meeting, all three of you." So the three of them went out. Then the Lord came down in the pillar of cloud. He stood at the entrance to the tent and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When the two of them stepped forward, he said, "Listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams, but this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then are you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" The anger of the Lord burned against them, and he left them. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous. It became as white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and saw that she had a defiling skin disease. And he said to Moses, "Please, my Lord, I ask you not to hold against us the sin we have so foolishly committed. Do not let her be like a stillborn infant coming from its mother's womb with its flesh half eaten away." So Moses cried out to the Lord, "Please, God, heal her." The Lord replied to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Confine her outside the camp for 7 days. After that, she can be brought back." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on till she was brought back. After that, the people left Hazeroth and encamped in the desert of Paran. And that is the close of Numbers chapter 12. Now, this is a pretty interesting chapter because we're seeing some pretty intense things take place. Now, one thing I want to point out, because I do always find it a little bit humorous, as do a lot of people, I think, in Numbers chapter 12, which we understand Numbers to have been written down by Moses, it says Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. And it is ironic, although that is a true sounding statement, right? To think that Moses wrote those own words about himself is quite funny. That he is saying, "I am so humble, and look at me writing down how humble I am." It's just a little bit of a humorous thing. But in this story, we have to remember what happened right before this. Okay, so Miriam and Aaron, they have felt emboldened to speak up against Moses. Now, why is that? Well, in the last chapter, in Numbers chapter 11, we see that the Lord, it says, took some of the Spirit from Moses and sent it out amongst the elders and other people that are helping to lead. And there were people who started to prophesy, even prophesy within the camp. So as the Lord started to move in the lives of other people, Aaron and Miriam started to look at Moses as less important than he previously was. So they bring forth this criticism. Now, again, it is ironic to think that they would be criticizing Moses for anything, because think back to the reality that Aaron went and he ended up helping build a golden calf for the people of Israel to perform idol worship. Not good things, not great people, not perfect people. Moses, not a perfect person either. That's not what he's claiming to ever be. He is one, though, who knows the Lord. And so in this instance, we see that the Lord takes Aaron and Miriam. He reveals himself in the majesty of his glory and the fullness of who he is, but still not to the fullness of what he has shown to Moses. And in this moment, he looks at them and basically says, hey, you guys are being dumb. What are you doing? Not being aware of the fact that there is one who I am doing things through that I have not done through anybody else. In the end, Miriam is struck with this leprosy. You might wonder, why was not Aaron struck with this leprosy? Well, once again, we do have to think about the context of their roles. For Aaron, he is the priest. He is ministering on behalf of the people in the presence of the Lord. So for him to end up having this skin disease, it would have meant that he was not able to go in and to minister on behalf of the people. Miriam did not serve in that same way. So in the midst of this punishment that takes place, and Aaron is grieved for it as well, she is the one who is able to receive that and that sort of a thing. I hope that makes sense. Now, once again, God does heal her, but he makes her go through the proper process necessary for anybody to be able to be made clean and whole and restored. And in the end, also, what do we see of Moses? Moses prays on their behalf that they would be healed. Okay, so for us today, when we look at this, what should we take into consideration? Now, I do not look at this and think, oh, we should look at any person doing anything on behalf of God as though they are Moses. We are not Moses. We are not one who is looking to operate in the way that Moses operated. But what we should look and do is we should look and say, God, if you are doing things through people, we should be slow to speak, not in the sense of saying that we cannot call people to accountability. We should do that, but we should be slow to speak. We should make sure we have good discernment. We should not just be flippantly looking around and saying, you know what, God, let me start to point at them for their faults when I maybe don't realize my own. What does Jesus look and say in the Gospels? He looks to those who are trying to criticize others. He ends up saying, hey, you're pointing to a speck in their eye when you have a plank in your own. So it's not bad to call out sin. Definitely is not a bad thing to do, but we must be aware of the times that we are speaking against people who are trying to do things on behalf of the Lord, and make sure that we are doing it with a proper heart, in the right way, and in a way that's not just trying to bring judgment on ourselves. Again, we see in this moment, Miriam and Aaron, their statements, their words, what did it do? It brought judgment upon them because they were not acknowledging what God was doing. Ultimately, what did this come down to? God showing that he was doing more than they could simply understand, what they could simply see. And so, friends, for you and I today, man, God is up to things. He is doing stuff. He's doing great things. Let's be aware of those things, and let's also make sure that we are truly having discernment if we are going to speak against somebody who is ministering, who is doing things. I don't even just mean pastors, but people who are stepping out in faith to honor the Lord. How are they doing it? What's their heart behind it? What's the way in which they are operating within it? Are we looking and just offering criticism when we don't have a conviction? Or are we choosing to go and say, God, how are you calling us to honor you today? Now, one example I will give to make sure to affirm the reality that there are times that we do call people when there is true sin present. We see that Nathan, the prophet, goes and confronts David after he has been with Bathsheba, after he's had this affair. Nathan goes, he ends up having this confrontation. He ends up meeting with David, and he calls him on his sin. But once again, why was this? Because David was in abject sin. It was to a point that it was understandable that he had to call this to account. So I use that example simply to say that I am not saying today that we should not hold people accountable, but we must be wise, we must have discernment, and we must seek after the Lord to make sure that what we are doing is not just out of pure jealousy, that it is not out of pure arrogance, and it is not from a place of misunderstanding. So friends, today, with that being said, that's what I got for you out of Numbers today. If you have any questions, make sure to comment them down below. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, like, follow, leave a rating. All those things are so appreciated. But with that being said, thanks for being here today, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow because we're taking time to study the Word of God every single day.